Good morning once again to all of you. In the previous lectures, we were discussing about the CNS, central nervous system, which consists of the brain and the spinal cord. In the structure of the brain, we discussed that the upper foremost part of the brain is the cerebrum. And then under the cerebrum is an egg-shaped structure called the uppermost part is the cerebrum, and under the cerebrum is an egg-shaped structure called cerebellum. And then there is a stem present at the base of the brain, which we call as medulla oblongata. The CNS consists of the brain and the spinal cord. And we did not talk about the spinal cord. What is spinal cord? Spinal cord is the extension of the medulla oblongata. Spinal cord is the extension of, this is medulla oblongata, okay? The spinal cord is the extension of the medulla oblongata till the second lumbar vertebrae, till the second lumbar vertebrae. So what is the definition of spinal cord? Spinal cord is the extension of the medulla oblongata till the second lumbar vertebrae. And how does this medulla oblongata extend? It extends from the brain through a hole in the brain, which we call as foramen magnum. Foramen magnum is a hole present in the brain through which the medulla oblongata extends and reaches the second lumbar vertebrae. Okay. And what is the function of the spinal cord? Spinal cord controls it conducts the impulses from the different parts, from the skin and the muscles to the brain. It conducts sensory impulses from the skin and muscles to the brain, and the motor responses from the brain back to the skin and the muscles of the skeleton system. Okay, so it brings about the muscle coordination in the body, and it also has its role in controlling the reflex actions, which we'll discuss later in this video. So before going for the reflex action, let's do a cross section of the video. Suppose this is this is the spinal cord. Okay, spinal cord is the extension of the medulla oblongata, and if we do the cross section of the spinal cord, cross section means, suppose I have a finger. If I will cut it like this, okay, if I will cut it like this horizontally, that's called as the transverse. That's called as the transverse section. And if we do the transverse section of the spinal cord, we find a structure like this. What is this? Spinal cord in transverse section looks like that. Spinal cord is made up of two halves which are joined together. Okay, and there is they form a canal in the center, which we call as central canal. Okay, so the spinal cord is made up of two halves which join to form a canal in the center, which we call as central canal. And this central canal is also filled with the cerebrospinal fluid. What is cerebrospinal fluid? It is the same fluid which is present in the meninges of the brain, which is present between the meninges of the brain. In the previous lecture, I told you that there are three meninges present in the brain, which are having the fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. And thus their cerebrospinal fluid is continuing through this medulla oblongata and through the spinal cord, through this central canal. Okay. And what is the function of the cerebrospinal fluid present in the central canal? It has the same function as it has been when it was present in the meninges of the brain. Means it is giving the protection to the spinal cord from the injuries and shocks. It is also providing the nourishment to the spinal cord. The same two functions as it was having in the meninges. Okay. Now you see here a butterfly or an H-shaped structure present in the transverse section of the spinal cord. What is this H structure? This H structure is the gray matter. This H or butterfly shaped structure is the gray matter. And why do we call it as gray matter? Because this appears to be gray in color due to the presence of cytons or cell bodies in the this H-shaped structure. Okay, so there are cytons or cell bodies in this H-shaped structure, which gives it the color of gray. That's why we call it as gray matter. And this gray matter is surrounded by the white matter on all of its sides. And what is white matter? White matter appears to be white in color because it contains the axons. Okay, gray matter is gray because it contains cytons. White matter is white because it contains axons. Okay, so this is a transverse section of the spinal cord. We see here a central canal filled with the cerebrospinal fluid, an H-shaped structure which has the gray matter as it contains cytons, and the white matter which contains only axons. Okay, so this is about the transverse section of the spinal cord. Now coming to the question, reflex action. How are reflex actions performed? Reflex action by the definition is a spontaneous automatic response. Spontaneous automatic and mechanical response. Okay, for example, sneezing. When we are sneezing, why? Because some foreign object or some dust particle or smoke enters our nostrils and immediately we sneeze. So sneeze is a reflex action. Why? Because reflex actions are those actions which are performed by the spinal cord. They are not performed by the brain. They are performed by the spinal cord. The spinal cord is dictating the reflex actions. Reflex actions are quick, spontaneous, and mechanical. Okay, spontaneous. Their reflex actions are quick, spontaneous, and mechanical. And there are three neurons involved in a reflex action. They are sensory neurons, association neurons, and motor neurons. For example, I'll give you an example. For example, here is a pinprick. If you happen to accidentally come in contact with a very sharp object, suppose a pin. So this is a pinprick. Okay. Now there are receptors located in every parts of our body. Suppose this pinprick is here on the back of my hand. Okay. Now there are receptors present in my hand, and those receptors receive the message through the sensory neuron. Now this sensory neuron receives the message. This is sensory neuron. It receives the message and takes it to the spinal cord. The sensory neuron, this is SN I will write, this is sensory neuron. It takes the message from the receptor organ. The receptor is our hand, receptor organ is our hand, which received a stimulus, and stimulus was the pinprick. So upon receiving a stimulus by the receptor gives the message to the sensory neuron, and the sensory neuron takes this message to the gray matter. Okay, and the sensory neuron is connected to the motor neuron here by another neuron which is called as association neuron. So what is association neuron? By the name, association neuron is the neuron which associates sensory neuron with the motor neuron. Understand? So this is the stimulus here, that's the pinprick. Pinprick upon received by the receptors take the information through the sensory neurons to the gray matter, and in the gray matter the sensory neuron passes on its information to the association neuron, and the association neuron passes the same information to the motor neuron, and the motor neuron takes the message to the effector organ. Takes the message to the effector organ. That's our hand in this example. And what will this effector organ do? It will withdraw the hand. It will withdraw the hand. Understand? So the stimulus was the pinprick, and the response is the withdrawal of the hand. So this is an example of the reflex action. Understand? So in this lecture we talked about that the medulla, this spinal cord is the extension of the medulla oblongata till the second lumbar vertebrae. Okay. Then we did the cross section of the spinal cord. It looks like this in the cross section. There is an H-shaped structure which contains the gray matter. It's surrounded by the white matter. The gray matter contains the cytons or the cell bodies. The white matter contains the axons. Okay, and then we talked about the reflex action. How is a reflex action performed? I gave you an example of the pinprick. Suppose on the back of my hand. Okay, the receptors present here, they received the message and took this message through the sensory neuron to the gray matter. Okay, and in the gray matter, the message traveled from the sensory neuron to the association neuron, and from the association neuron to the motor neuron. This is the motor neuron here. MN is the motor neuron, and the MN motor neuron takes the response to the effector organ, and the effector organ draws the response by withdrawing the hand. The other examples of reflex actions are sneezing. Okay, sneezing is a reflex action, and the other example is the blinking of the eye when any foreign object falls into our eyes. Okay, this is a reflex action. Also, the knee jerk is also an example of the reflex action. And sometimes, if you step on a very sharp object, or if you happen to touch a very hot object, you immediately withdraw your hand or your foot. So those all are the examples of the reflex actions. So this is all about this chapter. Thank you very much.